I call to order the Town Council regular session Monday, April 29th, and the time is 7:10. If we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Could we have the roll call, please, Susan?
Council President Whaley.
Present.
Council Vice President McEntee.
Here.
Councilman Donnelly.
Present.
Councilman O'Neill.
Here.
Councilwoman Healy. Here. All members are present.
Thank you, Susan. Tonight we have our public hearing to consider and adopt the Town Council's final budget for the fiscal year 2013-14 as amended shown on Exhibit 1 attached here too. And I'm just going to, at this point, turn it over to Mr. Alford. Thank you. That's what we just did. We're going to need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right,
Public hearing's open.
tonight's public hearing is for the final action by the town council on the adoption of the 2013-2014 general fund. The general fund, as well as the other several funds that make up the overall municipal program, have been the subject of reviews by the council since December of last year. Most recent were the informational public hearings that were conducted in accordance with charter on April 9th and April 10th of this year. There have been no requests for adjustments to the budget filed with the town clerk's office, which is also in accordance with the charter, for the council to have to address this evening. So the budget stands as the preliminary budget that was adopted on March 29th. The overall general fund program is proposed in the amount of $195,340. The program is up 1.17%, or $858,928. To fund that budget, as presented on the first page of the exhibit, we're looking at a property tax levy requirement of $67,066,381. We round that number up because when you are going 4 places after the decimal, as far as setting the tax rate, there needs to be flexibility in what that bottom line is. So the adjustment will be to a proposed not to exceed number of $67,100,000 we will use. The most up-to-date information available from the assessor's office is targeting a property tax rate of approximately $15.41. I still say there's a range there of between $15.40 and $15.50, so it's right on line with what we had talked about with the budget hearings. When we look at the municipal program, the transfer to the schools is up 1.59%, or $767,283. The as noted, there are several funds that are also included, and I can go into any detail or questions that the public may have relative to the school fund, Peacedale office building, neighborhood guild, senior services program, or the utility funds that are also included in our budget document. Having said that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council or the public may have relative to the council's preliminary adopted budget that's scheduled for public hearing this evening for final adoption.
Thank you, Steve. At this time, I'm going to see if there's any questions here at the table. Jim?
Yes, Steve, just for some clarity purposes, my colleagues here on the council bench, again, I'm having a problem with line items, but it's not unusual, the school budget. I know the schools have got to adhere to the bottom line budget number. But again, I'd ask everybody to look at the salary number on Exhibit 1 on the school fund, 2012-13 adopted, $34,255,000. Next year recommendation, almost the same, $34,221,000. Yet all of us were in receipt from the school committee of their collective bargaining agreement, showing almost $1.7 million being saved. Almost $1.2 million of that are salaries. $500,000 is coming back in terms of the stipend, so there's almost $700,000 net that somehow or another gets lost with those salary numbers I just gave you for 12-13, 13-14. So maybe this could be good news next year. Maybe we'll have some surplus. I'm just concerned too, because the school committee, Ms. Stringfellow promised us in April we'd know a lot of class sizes for next year, where the cuts were going to be made. And I haven't heard anything from the schools section on that. So there's not enough here for me to, ask for the few $100,000 that I see missing here, but I'm very concerned that that line item for salaries, I think, is incorrect in this current year, but I don't think we have a way to knowing that until it's audited. And I think we're much too high for next year. And you just, with the numbers that the schools gave us, it's impossible to have these salary numbers in place. But again, they have to adhere to the bottom line for the budget. Maybe we'll have good news, maybe we won't. But I've been doing this now for 13 years, and this is the worst I've ever had trying to figure out line items here, specifically the salaries with what they gave us for the collective bargaining agreement. So I don't know if there are any answers for this. I'm just stymied, not enough to beef about the budget here. I'm very pleased that we're keeping it at 1% total for the community. But I just don't know what to do about this, the school line item issues. Maybe the money's somewhere else. Maybe it'll show up somewhere else. But if you see these numbers, it's confusing. It has to be down. It can't be unchanged. It has to be down 700,000. But I think this number in the current year is incorrect. I think it's too high. But I just don't know how we get there. So I don't know what I'm looking for here, but I'm having a terrible problem with it.
I think you bring the positive aspect that maybe it will be good news and it will offset the property tax and maybe even the bond that will be in November 2014.
That
So,
would certainly be good news. No question about that. No question
I
about
think
that.
that
Steve?
one of the things that I would comment on is that when we look at the bottom line of the budget, one of the reviews that that Alan has done is to take a look at the increases that are outside of the personnel account. And I'm not going to disagree with Jim on the bottom line number with the types of reductions that were proposed, that 1.685. But when we look at the school budget is showing an increase of $375,100. When we look at all of the different accounts, and if you assume that the existing year's budget that was adopted is a starting point, we can trace all of the increases in other accounts. Increases like the teaching, teachers' assistants at $194,000, the non-certified retirements for $235,000. My point is that when you look at the overall budget, we can get to the $375,000 number, or I should say, Alan's within about $25,000 of that number. But I think that as far as being able to match every single person to a salary to the bottom line number in the current year and what's proposed next year, I would agree with Jim, we don't have a great deal of clarity. And I'd let Alan address the issue from the perspective of the personnel.
Yeah, one of the things I tried to do was, look at the salaries, Jim, from the bottom line, and really I can go through everything and figure it out with the exception of the teacher assistants and the clerks. I did call John Rashad on that today, but he was in a meeting, and then we were in a meeting all afternoon, so we just didn't connect. But basically, I think that there is, if you look at what the estimate is for the current year, for the school committee. I think there was a structural deficit within the teacher's assistance account. So you have to take into account that number, and then you add that in. There's also some step increases that aren't reflected on John's cut sheet that he came up with over the $1 million in salary cuts. So you add those in, I think that's worth around $60,000. The same thing applies on the clerk side. There's some step increases there. Same thing on the custodian and maintenance. And then in addition to that, on the aides, there's some summer days in there that I don't believe were in there last year. That was around $23,000. And then they have an item in there, CPT coverage, which I'm not sure what that's for. Under the
Common
aides-
planning time.
Pardon?
Common planning time.
Okay, so that was an add back as far as what they have on their cut sheets. So that reduced that overall cut, so that is accounted for. But the summer days, I don't believe that those were included in there. So there are a few things in there. There are some contingency dollars. I think when we looked at it, the fact that they're cutting 30 positions, that is a huge cut. We haven't seen anything like that in the past. And I think there was a concern that some of their numbers may not materialize, or there may be pressure to add positions back in. They may be mandated to add positions back in. So we took all that into account when we looked at the budget. I think one of the other things that is a possibility is, as far as the grants are concerned, that there could be a reallocation of grant dollars that with the federal cutbacks, they are anticipating that some of those grants are going to get hit. So if there's less grant funds available next year, that's going to increase that expenditure account because that credit's not going to be there any longer. So I think, if you spent some time on it, we could come down to the bottom line. Based on some assumptions that I've made, based on those things we just talked about, bottom line on the overall school budget, I come within $28,000. Now, if they have a good year, yes, it could be a $300,000-$400,000 surplus. But on the negative side, if some of those things don't go right, if they can't cut those positions, or if the grants are cut back more, then that surplus is not going to materialize.
I don't disagree with you. That's why I was willing to move forward on this. I just didn't think they'd be able to cut all those positions either, and I just didn't know how they were working this into the schedule. I think some of the questions that I did get from the folks out there who aren't here this evening, at the school budget, the property taxpayers are coming up with another $770,000. Yet the overall school budget's the increase is only $375. So it's hard to tell folks what's going on at the state level, state aid, backing it down to the property tax appropriation. That's not easy to do. But I certainly wanted to, I thought this was going to be quite an impact year with those number of layoffs, and I understand that they may need some maneuvering room, so I can understand that.
And if they don't spend it, and certainly one of the conversations that we had when we met with the school administration was that, we thought there was some money available, and if it was, then they would not spend it in those particular accounts, and that would go towards future capital expenditures so that we wouldn't have to bond that money, therefore saving the debt service costs.
All right, thank you.
And I think Jim's point's well taken, that the public needs to understand that the state aid loss for the schools this year was $381,866. For the budget to stay as a base budget, that $381,000 ends up having to come out of property taxes. It's not disappearing.
Right.
It's just going to be replaced with the local dollars. So that's an important point for the public to understand. Larger and larger share of the overall school budget is becoming funded through the property tax base.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions here at the table? Carol?
Alan or Steve, wasn't there also a Medicaid reimbursement that was being reduced?
Yeah, but that doesn't affect the expenditure side. It
Okay.
just means that, property taxes have to replace that revenue source that's not going to be there.
But that didn't have anything to do with the school budget? Or it
Yes,
did,
it
didn't it?
does. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a revenue on the school budget that's been reduced.
Mhm.
and
So that's
therefore
less
has to
money
be-
coming in, right?
What's
Or
that?
is that less money coming in? So we have to make
$50,000.
that up also, besides the state aid.
Correct.
So it seemed to me when the night we had the explanation on all of this from the school committee, it was that we were losing money. Besides cutting positions, we were also losing quite a bit of money from the state aid and other sources.
That is correct, but that doesn't have any impact on the expenditure piece, which I think is what people
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions here at the table? Jim?
One more. We don't know anything further on the 600,000 plus we're hoping for in the technology fund account. And would that change the capital budget going forward in our budget for the schools?
No, the technology, the software that we're purchasing, that they were involved with, is that what
No,
you're?
no, what the General Assembly agreed to?
No, that has not been addressed.
Okay.
I think there's a meeting that took place within the last week or two, but I don't know what the outcome was of that.
Good. That's right. Thank
We
you.
do believe that there's going to be increases that are going to be required in the hardware infrastructure, but who's going to pay for it, Jim, and in what year it's going to be necessary, we haven't been advised of that.
Thank you.
I just
Carol?
have one more question. So the 1.685 million is what they were talking about in a reduction of staffing. That's the 30 positions that they're cutting? That's what they presented to us back in,
Yes, yes, that
Oh.
is correct. That consists of both salary and benefits, the healthcare, the Delta that went with those, and the retirement costs and the FICA. And
So-
then salaries. Total up to that, but the net is 1.2 million because they also added some things for common planning time, summer school, after-school program.
that was through the contract, right?
Right.
The new contract that they negotiated, which required more dollars in other areas.
It required more salary dollars to pay top-step teachers, a
Mhm.
one-time lump sum, yes.
Okay. So what Jim is concerned about is the difference between the 1.685 and the 1.2. Is that what we're talking about right now?
Pretty much, mine was more the salary line, which I think Steve and Alan said, of the 1,700,000, almost 1,200,000 were salaries. And I'm just trying to connect it with the salary line here, because they added back 500,000 for the stipend. That leaves a $700,000,
Well,
if you
isn't that
will.
what I just said? The difference between those two numbers? 1.7. It's actually 1.685.
Yep, yep.
And you're saying that the actual savings is 1.2, not 1.685?
Yes, because they added some salary dollars back in for the
So-
common planning time, the summer school, all those are salary-related expenditures. So the net, when you add all the positions that they cut, and you add the lump sum salary that the teachers got at $498,000, and you put in the FICA that is associated with that number, the net is $1,226,000. But not all of that is salary, some of it is fringe benefits.
Okay, but that's the savings from the 30 layoffs, or is that,
Yes.
okay.
yes.
But it's not realized in the
net-
budget?
The net of the layoffs plus the additionals that they had to add back in based on contract negotiations, more common planning time and those things.
So that's what, supposedly that's what they were saving from the 30 layoffs, 1.2, and
Right.
then the actual net.
That is correct.
Okay. But what he's saying is we're not realizing
Excuse-
that in the budget.
Yeah, no, the actual net is 686,000, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because they've added in
Yeah,
different,
right.
they've added in different things. You have to add in the salary increase,
Right,
that
yep.
1,587. You add that in plus the FICA on that, that's $540,000 roughly. They had the 1.685 million reduction, but they also had contract concessions where they were providing for the common planning time, all those other things. So when you take the concessions on top of it, you get a $1.2 million reduction, but you're then got to put in $540,000 for the salary increases, so the net comes out to be about $686,000. So yeah, they can say that they cut 1.685, but based on the add-ins and other changes, it was about 685,000.
And that should have all
We
been,
reduced the 200,000 out of the,
Healthcare.
no, the unemployment. was corrected, right?
No, it was the health.
It was the healthcare for the
that we-
200.
yeah.
And so by the time you're done, you're back up to like $886,000. So, I mean, that's why, there's a lot of numbers floating back and forth. When we got done with the reviews, our discussion was, we've got downside potential with grants, we've got downside in terms of whether they can meet the different positions that they're talking about cutting. And they also had ongoing negotiations going with 2 other unions. So we felt that where the bottom line was at the 375, and again, I'll go back down to bottom line, rather than just looking at personnel, was a reasonable expectation for the 13-14 year with the number of questions that were still outstanding. With the caveat that we've said to them, you need to stay within the expenditure budget that you've prepared, and you're not to spend more than those dollars, and they've agreed to that. So with that in mind, we were supportive of the program as presented.
So, Jim, what you're trying to say is you think the salary number for the 13-14 year should reflect the savings of these 30 positions?
Yeah, or certainly a major piece of that. Yes, I thought the $34,221,000 might be more reflective of $35,500,000. But as Steve just said, there's so many moving parts to this. And the major one is, are they going to be able to cut the number of positions? Maybe the first year will be a good start, maybe the rest have to occur in the second year. So I was giving them the benefit of the doubt of that. I wasn't trying to make an issue of that, because I know that was going to be a tough road to hoe.
Well, that was part of the whole class size discussion and what grades they were going to lose students from.
Exactly, yep.
And whether they could actually cut a fifth, say it's a 5th grade teacher or something, do they have more 5th graders
Right.
in different schools? So they weren't sure they could actually do that.
Right.
Because it wouldn't be that all the students that were leaving were all from the same class
Correct.
or grade. So you're satisfied that this reflects the savings and the contract negotiations?
What I'm saying to you is that the bottom line of what we have as a budget is what I expect that they would need. I think that they may be $500,000 good, or they may break even. If they have $500,000 extra, it's $500,000 less that we'll have to borrow when we do school improvements. So as far as I'm concerned, it's an appropriate way of going forward. Recognize when you bond money and you've paid for it back over a 20-year period, you're paying interest that's going to double the value of what you borrow, roughly. So for us to be able to set the money aside within that fund balance to then be forwarded to the construction would be advantageous to the community. That's the best of all worlds. The worst of all worlds is that you cut things back. You have the reality of cutbacks on the grants and increased cost as far as them not being able to make some of the cuts that they wanted, and you end up in a deficit position that you then have to fund out of your fund balance. And once you've got an operating deficit, you're going to have to make that up plus the increases for the following year. So we felt this was a conservative way of going that would provide us with greater flexibility, not just for the 13-14 year, but going forward in 14-15 and 15-16. So that's how we got to those numbers.
And they didn't cut any programs. I recall them saying that they weren't cutting programs, so that was important through this whole budget.
We never get involved with cutting programs on the municipal side. That's-
No, I mean, the school committee represented that and the superintendent, that they weren't cutting programs.
Well, I think that they were cutting some program because there was classes that would not be offered at the high school level as a result of some of the reductions of those 30 slots. And there was going to be changes in enrollment ratios as a result of the changes. So I'm not sure that they can say
Well,
that there was
I
not
think they
program.
represented to us that they would allow the high school students choose not their extracurricular, their
Schedules.
the schedules, and then they'll decide which classes would cut versus,
I'm just saying I can't address whether there was cutbacks.
No, but I'm just saying what they presented to us. They were talking, they made the statement that programs wouldn't be cut, and the electives that the students take at the high school level, that would have something to do with what got cut and what remained for a course, depending on how many students signed up. So I think they were looking at it that way. So it was very unclear how this was all going to go, but I'm sure I didn't feel that the school committee or the superintendent were exactly sure how this was all going to play out. But they had some idea. Anyway.
Okay, any further questions here at the table? At this time, I'm going to open the microphone for anyone from the public if they would like to come and comment on the budget before its final adoption. Please come forward. How are you? Hi, Eileen.
Question.
You can just officially state your name.
Yes.
Thank you.
Eileen Riley, South Kingston voter. The budget proposal from the school committee was $58,250, $400,000, and the budget that's suggested in this proposal is $51,247, 21. Is that correct? It's been reduced? Am I?
We just have Mr. Alfred address it.
I guess I'm going to ask you, what page are you on?
Actually, I'm looking at the budget proposal from here, and I'm on,
If you go to page 3 of the exhibit, page 3 of the exhibit that you have is the school fund. And
yeah,
what-
that's what I'm, Exhibit 1, fiscal appropriation, school. Is that where I am?
School
Yes.
appropriate, the
Yeah,
school
you got your,
appropriation.
yep. 1, 2, 3, yes.
Okay, so you got the school fund there. The school budget is
The
58
proposal,
million,
58.
$58,625,500.
Actually, I had in this 58,250, 400,000. Is that a miss? No, actually, it's, 212, 213, okay. My mistake. So what was that again, please? The proposal as opposed to what it stands now is what I'm interested in. And I'm apparently brought the wrong book with me. I apologize. Perhaps you could, the budget proposal from the school committee and the budget proposal from this day forward.
Do you have those
The
figures?
school committee requested $58,825,500.
825.
That was reduced by $200,000.
To be 51, 2,000.
It was $58,800,000.
Yeah, I know, but the budget for today is 51,247,000?
No, the budget today is $58,625,500. So there's, so the reduction from the school committee's request in January was $200,000. The $200,000 reduction was based on an adjustment made to what their health care contribution would be to the health care reserve fund.
So the actual budget, as proposed by the school committee, wasn't actually changed in any way. There were just more funds available or not available according to what happened in between.
The
Is that
increase that
correct?
they needed for health care was stated higher than it needed to be when we reviewed it. They agreed that that $200,000 could be reduced from the budget. That's the only thing that was reduced from what the school committee requested.
Okay, thank you. I have one more comment to make. It's a very general comment. How many people have we got here tonight? I consider that shame on everyone in this town, including the people that were encouraged to get rid of the financial town meeting. In my understanding, for the reason to get rid of the financial town meeting is because only 20% of the town showed up. Therefore, we were not represented properly. It has been changed to 0. And I shame on everyone that created this situation, and shame on every voter in South Kingston that gave up their right to actually vote on the money spent in this town.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay. Seeing none, I'm just going to bring it back to the table one more time. Any comments from town council members? Okay, can we have a motion
I
to
move
close
we
the public
close the
hearing?
public hearing.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. And can we have a
I
motion?
move that we adopt the budget as presented in Exhibit 1.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Budget is passed. Which brings us now to item 5, which is new business. This is a resolution authorizing fund transfers as shown on Exhibit 2, attached here too. And at this time, I'll ask Mr. Alfred to just give a
The fund
brief.
transfers, as presented on both April 9th and April 10th at the public hearings, provides for the specific authorization to transfer dollars within the various municipal funds, whether it's from the general fund to capital reserve funds, or from reserve funds back into the general fund, or from the school fund itself. All of those were included in the warrant of the budget presentation that was held on April 9th and April 10th. I'd be glad to address any questions that council or the public may have on any of the resolutions presented.
Thank you. Any questions here at the table in reference to any of the reserve fund transfers, Exhibit number 2?
I move approval of new business item A, 5A.
Second?
Okay, and before I do that, I'm just going to open it for any comments. Seeing none, we're going to take a vote on the reserve fund transfers. Ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next order of business is new business 5B. This is a resolution authorizing tax collection procedures as shown on Exhibit 3, attached here too.
The tax resolutions are the resolutions necessary to be able to establish the amount of the levy, as well as the interest requirements associated with late payments, set up the quarterly payment schedule as availability for the taxpayer, and also to provide finance director and tax collector with authorities to proceed. I would request the council consider in establishing the maximum property tax levy that be established at $67,100,000. As I noted previously, the minimum tax levy that would be necessary for the budget that has been adopted by the council would be $67,066,381, or approximately $34,000 less than the amount that would be placed in the tax resolution. That's necessary for us to be able to establish a maximum with meeting the tax rate with 4 places after the decimal. So I'd ask the council to set that amount at $67,100,000 as a maximum for the tax levy for the 2013-14 year.
Could I please have a motion?
I move approval of new business item 5B, authorizing tax collection procedures as shown on Exhibit 3 in the amount of $67,100,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion here at the table? Before we vote, I'm going to just, again, see if there's any comments from the public. Seeing none, ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Another year of,
Before we do close, and that comment would be that the council's process has been completed this evening. The charter provides for the process to continue if the general public believes there's a need for a referendum. The process from this point forward would be a petition filed through the town clerk's office with no less than 250 signatures of qualified electors within the town, requiring or requesting a all-day referendum to be conducted in an amount to change of the budget, either the school fund or the general fund, of more than $250,000. That step was provided to provide the general public with an opportunity to go to an all-day referendum in place of a financial town meeting.
Thank you. I also just want to state that this process really started back in December and January with the capital improvement, all the meetings that we had on the capital improvement. And then we resumed starting the beginning of March. We had 7 full meetings with public input. We also, so it was the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and also March 13th, March 18th. And then we also proceeded to 2 public hearings, April 9th and April 10th, which we did take some public input. So I think that we have looked at every single stone, tried to find every single penny. I know that, Jim, you were very vigilant in really trying to see how dollar for dollar matched, and, you know, Alan and Steve really looking at every little, you know, avenue that took place, and rich dialogue between the town council and the school committee, and all the other valuable input here from town council members. So I think that the taxpayers should be happy with this budget, and, you know, 1% tax levy, and doesn't get any better than that. We applaud you for the work that's been done, and you're right, we still have some deadlines for petitions, you know, in a referendum, so we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully that this budget will
And any
stand.
questions the public has can go directly to the clerk's office as far as the form and format necessary for posing that type of a question. In closing, I'd also like to just recognize Alan. I think we've put 32 budgets together. I'm going to miss him dearly next year. I may bring him in out of the bullpen to assist, but I just can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to be able to put these budgets together and to have him be able to administer them on the town's behalf. And certainly there'll be times to be able to say better things about him, but as far as budget's concerned, this is a major component of our work here, and something that particularly his review on the school fund has been, probably saved this community several $1 million, and it is something that really needs to be recognized. And hopefully the person that we find to replace him will be as much of a skinflint as he is.
This whole town
We're all going to
council.
miss you.
Got to get the last word in here.
Go ahead.
Right, this is my opportunity, I guess. You know, I guess I've been, you know, it's just been a great run for me, and as everybody knows, I have a great staff, so it's really a team effort from the tax collector's office to the staff I have in my department. I just have some truly dedicated people that I've really enjoyed working with. A lot of them have been with me for a long time, and I just really appreciate what they've done. Secondly, you know, I would like to express my appreciation to the council, because I think you folks have always, you know, we may have some questions back and forth, and certainly, Jim, you've asked them, but, you know, I appreciate that, because it just makes you, you know, turn over every stone as much as you can, and just the cooperation that I've had from the council has meant just an awful lot to me. And when I talk to fellow finance directors around the state, they just don't have that same relationship. So I really have valued that, and I really do appreciate it. And then last but not least, the guy on my right, and everything that he's meant for me, and it's been a great, great run, and I will be in the bullpen and be ready for a call.
And one final thing is we want to say Good evening to Dale. We know she's home watching.
Oh,
See, he always has to have the last word, Alan, see? We can't appreciate, the words can't even express, our appreciation for all that you've given to the town, but we still have you till July, right? So it's not over yet.
Don't play that fast.
Right. Okay. So seeing that, who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second?
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and we are adjourned at 7:50. Thank you.